Hi there.
Hey,
How's it going?
good. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. Thanks for meeting a little early. I got
Yeah,
everything done today, so I was like, why not give us more time?
yeah, no problem. Thanks for willing to do this.
Yeah, of course. Let me turn down my fan just so we don't get too much mic noise, but then we should be good to go.
Also, I could just jump around then before getting to Fire Emblem with your career.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
no
I know
worries.
in terms of performing that everything started with playing a Willy Wonka in third grade.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. It's funny because I think I was just like a very outgoing, like class clown kind of kid. And like sometimes teachers will pull your parents aside and be like, you need to get him under control. And sometimes they do it in a nicer way where they're like, hey, how about acting? Have you thought about that and some other kind of outlet for attention? And yeah, so it was a good start. It was a fun start. Um, I was lucky that my school had a third grade play. So
hmm
yeah.
And then moving ahead, I know, was it 2009 that you moved to LA?
Yeah, I originally moved out to LA for school. I got accepted to USC for their theater program. And I drove out with my dad over the course of like 3 days to get moved in. I didn't end up completing my time there. I dropped out early to take on an acting job. But yeah, LA has become home very quickly, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
hmm
Yeah.
Do you have a special SAG story too?
About SAG. Well, I had been SAG eligible for a while. For those who don't know, that are watching, SAG is the Screen Actors Guild, and there are certain jobs that are SAG, certain jobs that are not. So it's the best position you can be in is to be eligible, which is usually you've done one SAG job, so you could join the union, but you don't have to. And so when I booked a role on the Disney Channel for a show called So Random, which
hmm
was sort of like all that of its time. Had a lot of the same producers. I had a moment in my dressing room where they're like, "Hey, you are at a point where you literally have to join the union." I'm like, "Oh, cool. Is that expensive?" And they're like, "It's probably about what you'd make for this job this week." And I'm like, "Cool, awesome, great." So, a couple other people were in the same position as me. So all at once, we just did it. We did the thing.
hmm Well,
Yeah.
even before that, what was your experience on Super Psycho Sweet 16?
Oh man, that was an interesting job for me. It was an MTV horror movie, and I
Yeah.
love horror. I love horror, but I love spooky. Like I'm more about like pumpkins than, some guy cutting you in half with a chainsaw. Um, but it was a role that I booked. It was definitely the biggest role I had ever booked at that time. I think I was still under 18. But I was like, I know I was old enough to drive myself like to and from set, and I was very adamant. I was like, no, mom and dad, I want to do this. Like, this is my day. But I was so nervous being in that role that like, because you're just sort of thrust into the experience. It doesn't matter how many acting classes you take. Like when you're first in front of a bunch of cameras and you're like, this is a big movie. I thought like I was super nervous. So what my character had to do was laugh at the dude that ended up being the killer. I was supposed to be the skater punk kid that was just like, ha ha ha, old man, you're a loser, that makes him sort of snap and start killing people. And I was so nervous and my stomach was so tight that I couldn't laugh. I kept going like, like it was the worst laugh you've ever heard. And the director, like, bless his bones, he was like, yeah, Damien, laugh, like ha 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 ha, like laugh, like it's funny. And I'm like, I'm trying. So we got there eventually, but it was definitely a role that made me reconsider, like, do I want to do on camera acting forever, or is there something else out there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, that's what I was just about to ask. If there was a single event that made you want to pursue voiceover opposed to live action.
Yeah, I had always been interested in voiceover. As a little kid, and I actually like forgot about this until recently. As a little kid, I worked on an educational voiceover project. It was a CD-ROM to teach kids all about the state that they lived in. And I think Virginia was the one, and like it was sort of like a demo disc. And if it went well, then they were going to make ones for every state in America. Um, they didn't, but I had the Virginia one. So I recorded that for like, I don't know, I was a kid, but I think it was like a month's worth of work. and I had a lot of fun doing it. I was a little alien, and I think that just sort of opened my eyes to what voice acting was. And I remember, as a teenager, I didn't really book too many roles, and I found that I was not quite awkward enough to be the nerdy roles, even though I am myself very nerdy, and I was not quite beefy enough to be the jock roles, even though I likes to exercise. And I was like, well, shoot, I feel like I could do all these things. And once voice acting entered my mind as an option, I just sort of took off running with it. I think I started when I was like 20.
Mhm.
And since then I was just like, oh my God, I can be things that aren't even human. I
Right.
can be people with all sorts of different lived experiences. It doesn't matter what I look like. Um, Growing up as an actor kid, your look is very much, you don't have ownership of it. It's
Mhm.
like, blue is a good color for auditions. So you should own mostly blue clothing and make sure they don't have logos, and make sure your hair looks exactly like your headshots. And you should keep your hair long because they can always cut it if they need to, but so you need to keep it long. And so it just felt very liberating to lean into voice acting as opposed to on camera stuff.
Well, I know, and then that was with GTA 5 that started.
Yeah, so coming off of my Disney Channel job, I did a full season of that sketch show. And right after that, my manager at the time connected me with a publicist. And they were like, we just want to work with you for like a month and, see where we can go. And like, do you want to be in magazines? And I was like, kind of. And like, I had like one magazine interview, but like the idea of like fame for me is whatever. Like I don't really get anything out of that, but I do want more work. So she was like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I kind of want to do voice acting. And she was like, okay, I know a voice acting agency. Let me talk to them and see if I can at least get you a meeting. I got that meeting, which I was very grateful for. And they were like, we're going to try you out for 3 months, listen to your audition, see if you book anything. And within the first month, I booked GTA 5. And the next month, it was between me and one other person for like a Pepsi commercial. They got it, but like it was still enough for my agency to be like, okay, we'll keep you on. And it's the agency I work with till this very day. And I love them very much. And they've been super supportive and cool for many, many years.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Were you also, I mean, maybe even part of series like this that you can't talk about yet, but have you gotten many anime opportunities?
That's the strange thing because I love anime. I love anime. And I get a few opportunities here and there, but I haven't really done too much in that world. I think right after the Disney Channel, there was somebody who worked on set who also works in the voiceover field, and they were like, "Hey, why don't you come in for a day? You can play some like smaller roles on this one anime movie we're doing." And so I just did like a couple lines here and there just for different characters. I don't even remember the name of the film. Um, but it was a lot of fun. But that's about the extent of my anime experience. So I'd certainly like to do more. Hopefully, being a character in a JRPG series will open up doors like that.
Yeah.
I've done a fair amount of dubbing, but which is same skill, but just not anime.
Mhm.
It's strange because I will often watch anime with subtitles versus dubs, but I feel like that's so counterintuitive because I
Yeah.
want to be doing the dubs, so I should be listening and learning. So yeah.
Well, it
Yeah.
is interesting because you definitely have like the anime protagonist voice. You probably have heard that before.
Thank you very much. I'm glad. I'm glad it worked, especially for Shez for Fire Emblem. Thank you. That's a very nice compliment, especially to a weeb like me, and I use that term endearingly.
Yeah. So when Heroes came about first, I have heard that that's a pretty just general audition for most people. Was that the same case with you too?
Yeah, I don't really remember the audition for Heroes to be honest, but for a lot of mobile games, the auditions are very similar. You'll get like a spreadsheet of characters and maybe just a few lines here and there. But the funny thing was, I play a lot of video games, and Fire Emblem Heroes was actually my first Fire Emblem game that I played. So when I do remember when I got the audition for it, I was like, I think I know what this is.
Yeah.
And then when I booked it, they were like, you once you sign your NDA and you've booked it, you are now as a voice actor allowed to know what you're about to work on. So I remember it was during peak pandemic. I was in a closet in my old apartment that I shared with a roommate, and not ideal for voice acting, but I had my setup. It was hotter than heck in that little space. And they were like, Damien, the game we're working on today is called Fire Emblem Heroes. Have you heard of it? We're going to give you the rundown of what everything's like. And I was like, I was playing that this morning, right as I was waiting for the session to start. So I'll take any info you want to give me, but I'm pretty set. So yeah.
Was that Caitlin Galt directing you, or was it Patrick?
I'm pretty positive it was Patrick. I know Patrick was there. I know there were a lot of people on the other end, though. Usually when you're recording remotely, it'll be like, hey, what's up, Damien? This is Chris. I'll be your engineer today. We've also got Krista watching the script, and then Crystalline, who's on production from the company. And say hi, everyone. And you're trying to keep track. And so, but yeah, I'm pretty positive Patrick was there. Yeah.
Was it easy for you to relate to Saul?
It was easy to play the character of Saul. It was fun to get into because he is such an archetype. He's the flirt who also has this front of, regality and like, oh no, I'm a man of the cloth. I would never, but also so I feel like we've all seen that archetype before in anime and video games. And so can I say that I relate and am a flirt? Not necessarily, no, but I knew what I was getting into and I was like, oh, this is about to be a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a single favorite line then? There's probably more than one, but
he's currently my favorited character in Fire Emblem Heroes. But there's something to the effect of it's just like young couple in love. Is there anything more beautiful? Like it's just a mishmash of things like that because I think it was for like a bridal event. The one thing I did take away most from that though is in other video games, I played mostly characters who do like a lot of physical attacks, whether it's, Fortnite and you're breaking, boxes, or a military game like Halo where you're like throwing grenades or you're like screaming as you're shooting a gun. Saul is magic. He uses magic, and that's not something I'd done before. And I love doing efforts in video games. So they were like, Damien, you're going a little hard on the like hits. And I was just like, oh, wait, no, that's right. How would magic sound? Like, ha, like, that kind of vibe instead of just a grunt. So that was a very fun learning experience in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Also, question for you. Do you care about seeing logos as I drink things? Is that like a copyright issue?
No.
Kylo Ren glass. Here we go. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it is kind of related to that. It does make me think to ask, what do you think the case is so far where you've had to alter your voice the most significantly for anything?
Oh, goodness. That's a great question. There was one, I'll give two answers if that's okay.
Yeah.
There was one job that I got that like almost all my jobs come through auditions. Like I know I also do work in the digital space where I'm on YouTube and things like that. And there is sort of a stigma when people are like, are you just getting jobs because you're an influencer? But I've been voice acting for twice as long as I've been in internet funny haha boy. Right. But there was one job that came in out of nowhere that I did not audition for that I did get the vibe. I'm like, I think they just hit me up because they knew me from the internet and they had heard me do something with a very deep voice on a video for like one line. And they were like, that's the voice we want. So it was like hundreds and hundreds of lines and recording in that same closet during peak pandemic. And I'm doing it. And I'm like, this to me doesn't sound good. Like, hey, how's the voice, everyone? Are you sure? Like this, are we really hitting it? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then after I finished that session, I was like, I didn't feel great about the work that I did. I didn't feel like I was a match for that. And then I get a call a month or two later. They were like, hey, Damien, the producer's going in a different direction. And I was like, yeah, yeah. So it was like way down here. And I can't do that for that long. That's not my voice. But the most I've had to alter recently is Fortnite, Save the World. I play a character named Dennis, who I love. He's so much fun. He's really not the smartest guy, but he has these moments of just sheer wisdom that you're like, did you mean to be that smart? Or no, either way, that was a cool thing to say. But in one of the most recent storylines, there's a helmet that gets put on him that is supposed to allow people to connect with animals, speak with animals. And it was part of their like adding animals to the game update. But instead of, me talking as me, all of a sudden I was like channeling these animals and they were speaking through me. And so I was playing as Dennis, but then I had to be a chicken, and then I had to be the queen of the raptors, and then the king of the wolves, and the duke of the boars. And it was talking like to myself, to other people as like 5 different characters in one session. And that was awesome. That was like the full scope of my range in one day.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
Mhm. Yeah. What about the Darkest Headspace you've had to go?
Darkest Headspace. I don't. I think there's something to the like method acting style of thing where people are like, I've got to go live in a cabin for a year to understand what it's like to live in a cabin. It's like, no, you can just act.
Yeah.
Not to throw too much shade, but I did record an animated horror movie when I was like 20 or 21. This is like very much at the beginning of the film that like this info comes out, so it's not a spoiler. It's called To Your Last Death. It went through a few different name changes over the years, but I play a character who sort of gets trapped in like a Saw-like death game run by his own father. So there are definitely a lot of moments there where like my character is like being choked and like have to have the question of like, am I going to survive this choking? How much longer can I breathe before I'm about to die? So that was probably the Darkest Headspace, but I can't say I've ever walked out of a voice acting session being like, how am I going to sleep tonight? The darkness within me. It's just more like, all right, that was the job, and now I'm back to my life,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it is also cool because Shez is one of the first characters for you where it is a long running, more serious.
Yeah.
Mm.
Very much so. Playing Shez was an absolute blast. And I could talk about that all day, but regarding the headspace for Shez is in a very unique position because I played the heck out of Fire Emblem Three Houses, as I'm sure most of us did who are here right now. And so I already loved these characters, but these characters that spend so much time at Garreg Mach, either they are royalty or they are somehow nobles and they have a very specific way of speaking or a specific way they're raised, or maybe they're the son or daughter of a merchant family, but even so, there's something there. Or maybe they're adopted, but they still were raised in this environment. And Shez is so not that. He's a mercenary and has been his whole adult life, at least. I don't know if it said exactly when Shez starts fighting with Bergley's mercenaries, but it was an interesting challenge to be like, okay, so I have to fit in with the world of Fodlan and the world of Fire Emblem, but I'm very much not from their society. So voice wise, I think that was more of a challenge than like the headspace.
Mm-hmm.
Shez has these, and you as a player get to, really choose a lot of this, but it's these moments of self-doubt and do I belong here? And do I belong in any kind of position of leadership when I'm only responsible for myself? And Shez also questions their own power and, where that comes from and why. And like, there's a lot of uncertainty, whereas what is put forward is often the like, I call it out every time I stream it, the like anime, like arm twist, like, guess we're just going to have to give them what for, that kind of vibe. So it's fun. It's a layered character, and that's something I really enjoyed. And I also give a lot of credit to Christian Lamont and Patrick Seitz for directing me, because there would be those moments where it's like, hey, we're a little bit too chipper anime protag boy, or like, hey, actually we're a little bit too sad or a little too dark right now. Like, you sounded a little bit too bloodlusty against Byleth right now. Like, let's pull it back. And I really think they brought out the best I could have possibly done.
Mm-hmm.
And I give that to them. And yeah, so yeah.
Well, yeah, having interviewed Christian too, I mean, he's just like the most wholesome person
Oh,
ever.
he's a delight.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, we all kept it professional, but there was not a session that went by that, we at least wouldn't stop for a few minutes laughing and joking and having very specific like nerddom conversations. Like, you like that thing too? Like,
Yeah.
how it's how we nerds connect. It's like, you remember Street Sharks? Like cool. I don't remember if that was one, but
Yeah.
You know what I mean. Yeah.
So which aspects of Shez can you personally relate the most to, do you think?
I think for me personally, and probably for a lot of people, the sense of like imposter syndrome, where everybody is saying like, hey, you did a good job, or like this was awesome, and you're like, oh, no way. Oh, no way. Should I even be here? Am I, worthy of this level of responsibility? Don't praise me. Like, it was luck that this happened. It was a team effort. I think there are very few people out there that couldn't relate to that,
Mhm.
And also I can summon a sword with my mind. That would probably have to be second up, for sure. But it's a keyblade, so it's like this whole different thing.
Which was your favorite support, do you think?
Support conversation? It's a tricky question because I did play Three Houses so much that I just love these characters. And one big difference between Shez as the protag in this game and Byleth in Three Houses is Byleth was more of like a self-insert character, because they were not really voiced as much. You're supposed to be like, this is me. I'm the person. And that was the same reason I was like terrified people wouldn't like Shez, because I was like, oh no, we gave the protag a personality. You don't get to like be them. Oh no. But in game, I haven't done a full playthrough yet because I'm streaming it and playing for myself and have a 9-to-5 job and do voiceover auditions. So I'm getting there. But so far, I've always loved Raphael. Raphael is so wholesome. And, he does shout this out in the very first support conversation, but Raphael and Shez have a lot in common, not exactly getting the chance to, fully know their parents into adulthood and, feeling a little bit out of place. I also love the Lysithia conversations where you can't win. You're just saying the wrong thing every time. And it is just so fun to watch. I like the rivalry with Leone. You can tell I've mostly played Golden Deer at this point.
Yeah.
I did Black Eagles first in Three Houses. And for their favorite support, it's been a little while, so I don't think I could pick one out specifically, but I just, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Loved it all.
Well, there is a lot of with his lines and relationship with Arval, especially. There's a bunch of cool nuance in that.
Yeah. I think it was a really smart and fun choice to make Arval who they are. And I don't want to, say anything spoilery in case people aren't finished yet. And I recorded the script a while ago and haven't finished. So, I don't want to get any details wrong either. But I think, it's revealed pretty early that Arval is like, hey, I don't have a memory anymore. All I know is you and I are partners in destiny, and I've kept you from dying a bunch of times. So I'm like, that's a really cool set of circumstances to build upon, where like, I think with Byleth and Sothis, it was just like, here is our sense of purpose. We know exactly what's up. And Byleth would listen to Sothis and be like, wow, that's right. That's a good point. I think Shez just is always just like, oh yeah, Arval's here. That's right. That is a good point to bring up. I should bring that up. But like, it's a little bit less like, this is my divine purpose, and more like, look, neither of us knows why we're talking to each other right now. So let's just go with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun.
And I mean, I didn't necessarily expect too that you can end up, becoming friends with Byleth.
You can what? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's a cool option. I think, I don't know. I think that was really a love letter to the fans of Fire Emblem because, like, I love Three Houses. I loved playing as Byleth. I loved those relationships, and seeing this alternate timeline happen is great. And making Byleth an antagonist for so much of it is a really cool thing. But if the main point of the game were fully just to like, you got to kill the protagonist from the last game, like that would be that'd be a big switch.
Yeah.
But I guess that's up to the player.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also, this is my first interview since Three Hopes has come out. So yeah. I'm running two brains right now where I'm like, what can I say? Oh yeah, it's everything. I can say everything. So you'll see me like pause for a minute to make sure. I'm like, am I about to be in trouble? Wait, no, we're okay. People can own the game. Okay, cool. Yeah.
There were some people wondering if you prefer Byleth or Shez as a protagonist.
I mean, that's a bit of a loaded question. I'd probably have to say Shez, but I haven't really gotten far enough in Three Hopes yet to see voiced Byleth's personality develop and show up, and both voice actors for both versions of Byleth do an incredible job. And I also want to shout out Dawn, who plays Fem Shez, and she does an incredible job and has also been so nice and so welcoming. The Fire Emblem community on Twitter, like everybody followed me at once. Everybody was like tweeting me like, "Hey man, great work. Welcome to the family." And these were voice actors I already like knew and respected. So I just kept having these moments of like, "Oh, thank you. I can't believe it. Thank you." While also trying to remain professional and be like, "Yes, we are contemporaries in the same field. Yes, we both book jobs all the time, you and I." You know, it's so I know that was a bit of a spin-off from the question, but yeah, probably Shez.
Yeah. Well, it does seem like, or maybe you're just starting to, but are you friends with a lot of the like anime VO people in LA?
I'm getting to know some people now. Ray Chase, who's the voice of Noctis, I believe he's Roy in Heroes and Smash Bros. He went to USC as well and graduated like the year before I got there. So we connected very early. And once I started voice acting and seeing that, like, I think at the time he was like the voice of Coca-Cola Zero or something to that effect. So like he and I would get lunch every couple of years and just connect. And, you know, I don't want to put like a label on it necessarily, but he was very much like a mentor to me, which was very cool of him. And he would just give me advice here and there on like, "Oh yeah, you need a demo reel. You need a demo reel. Here's where you can go. That's a little cheaper for your budget right now. Here's where you can go. That's good. You know, you should be introduced to these people." Like, and it was just nice to have sort of somebody that I could ask questions to. So yeah, Ray Chase, and I'm friends with Justine Huxley. She's a great voice actor who's part of my same agency, and she's an Apex Legends. It's funny how many actors do become voice actors when they start out trying to be on camera. And if I miss any of my voice actor friends, I'm sorry. Like, this is an interview moment. I'm trying to list everybody, but yeah, I mean, oh, and Shelby Young, who is the voice of so many Princess Leia things now, and just like everything. She's killing it. I've known Shelby for quite some time. Yeah. Yeah. I remember one day, like Shelby, this was like years and years ago, but like we had started pursuing voice acting at like the same time. And she called me out of the blue and was like, "Hey, I've got this audition. And I just sort of wanted to pick your brain on like, you know, whether you would do the character more this way or more this way. Like, here are the two options." And I remember like at the time, I don't think I'd even booked Fortnite yet. So I was like, I had been on Cartoon Network for a little bit, but I was like not a regularly working voice actor. And she was definitely booking a lot of the time. So I was like, I'm happy to help, but also like, why are you calling me? Like,
Yeah.
I was like, you should be teaching classes now. Like, it was very interesting to watch. You know, everybody moves at different rates, you know, so. But that was just a funny moment of just like, do you not realize where you are right now? Like, you're killing it. So, yeah.
Well, it seems based off your streams so far that are you the kind of person who you don't mind listening to your own voice?
I thought I would hate it. I thought I would have such a hard time, and yet I am really enjoying it. I'm very proud of the product as a whole. Like Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, I think it's a great game. Like, I'm legitimately having fun with it. Here's the thing. I prepared myself for the worst, right? Because I was just stoked to be a part of the Fire Emblem universe. But I also know that it is the Warriors spinoff, and that's not everybody's favorite thing. Mm-hmm. And I also know that like Byleth was everybody's self-insert character. And I am now a character that is voiced, that is fighting against them. So I'm just like, oh, what if they hate having a voiced protagonist? What if they hate that we have to fight Byleth? What if they hate all these things? So like, I mentally prepared myself for the game to be less critically well received, and just to be happy and proud that I was a part of it. It was just nice seeing the initial trailers announced, and then I would go on YouTube and be like, I would look at reaction videos of people who had like, you know, it would have like 600 views, and someone would be like, "Oh, I'm really liking this voice for Shez. Oh, it's really cool. Oh, wait, we're fighting Byleth? Oh, that's pretty cool. This game looks great so far." And I was just like, okay, cool, good. That's awesome. And so far as I know, it's getting good reviews, and I have friends that are playing it and sending me screenshots. So I couldn't be happier. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe you saw it, but there were way back when the English trailer first dropped. I mean, there were people that were catching on to your voice like that.
Sure. And that's always something that's tricky because, you know, you do sign a non-disclosure agreement and I look, some people tell their friends, I think, when they're in a thing, but I like to honor my NDAs as much as possible because I'm always scared things would like get back to someone. I don't want to be like blacklisted in this industry. It's a dream job. So, um, you know, when people ask about it, I just have to say no, like flat out. Because if I say I can't talk about it yet, then that's still an answer. So I always say to my stream community on Twitch, if you are asking about a thing that I have not specifically talked about or announced yet, the answer is no, and it has to be no.
Mhm.
And there's some jobs that you do too as a voice actor where like even after the job comes out, you don't get to say that it's you. Like sometimes that's part of the job. So if I didn't talk about it, it's a no. But I will say, whereas a lot of streamers will be like, let's watch the Nintendo Direct together. Let's see what the new Microsoft showcase is like. What is the Sony state of play? I cannot stream those and I do not stream those. And I don't watch them with friends anymore because I've had too many situations in group of friends where they're like, oh, let's watch the new Sony thing. And I'm like, let's do that. And then I'll hear myself and like look around the room and be like, did anyone else pick up on that? No, cool. I'm gonna go get a soda. Anyone want a soda? Like really loud at that point. I don't know. Just it's hard to hide sometimes. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, going back to Shez, yeah, there were just
Mhm.
several people asking what your single favorite line for him is, or
Oh,
line.
single favorite line. Um, oh, that's such a good question. But like I haven't recorded since maybe January for Shez, and I'm still so early in game. I will say the battle efforts in general, those are my favorite things in games. And like again, I'm used to booking games where like I'm like, there's a grenade, throw it, or like fire in the hole. And so it was amazing to finally do like JRPG shouts and JRPG like sword hits. Those made me deeply happy. Like any like link attack where you're like, let's do it together, and you got my back and things like that. I'm just like, yes, I finally get to say those things. Finally, pro tag boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I always do with interviews for the subreddit is I type out some silly thing and have them say it in the character voice. If you could say it as Shez.
I would be happy to, with the addendum of I had vocal pharyngitis all through last week. I sort of blew out my voice and I'm still working through it. So I will do my best to sound like Shez. I think I can do it, but if it's a little off, have some grace for me, please.
Okay. I already copied it, so it's
Oh, is it in the the Zoom chat?
yeah.
Okay. Pouring milk before cereal. With my lucky charms, prepare to die, Byleth.
That sounded good.
Thank you. Usually in voice acting, you give like an A and a B take. So I do that and I'd be like, oh, no, wait, no, I need to have more like tie to the lucky charms and be like, pouring milk before the cereal. With my lucky charms, prepare to die, Byleth. And then they'd pull me back and they'd be like, that's too much blood. You did the grumble. Shez doesn't have the grumble. I'm like, okay, I'll stop. But yeah,
Thanks.
you got it.
This is a pretty common one. One of the highest rated ones was just people that were wondering how you juggle the Smosh work between voiceover.
Oh, it's a lot. That's a very good question. I'm trying to get a lot better at having a separate social life and making boundaries with myself for that. I'm getting tea with a friend after this just to go get tea. Because it's tough. Smosh is a 9 to 5 or 10 to 6 job. For those that don't know, Smosh is a YouTube sketch comedy channel. There's a gaming aspect, there's a personality aspect, and there's sketch comedy aspect. But everybody does a little bit of everything. So sometimes I write, sometimes I direct. I'm often on camera talent. Sometimes I have to learn a board game so that we can play it for a video the next day. They have been relatively cool with me having to take time off of work to go record. I will say recording Shez was the most challenging with that because that was the most sessions in a row I've had spread out over the course of like 6 months. And they eventually were like, okay, like you're going to be at work soon. But, it did all work out. But from a personal perspective, I stream 3 times a week. I have that boundary with myself. Sometimes I'll add like a fourth if I'm really bored or have a sponsorship. Voice acting auditions, I've learned to not do every one of them now. Sometimes you can just see an audition and know, like, I'm not going to book this. Like, this isn't my vocal type and I need to rest. I try to get to bed on time, and I try to make self-care, like relaxation, as important as work. And you don't get it right every day. There are some days where I'll wake up really early and I'll go until like 1 a.m. and then I go to bed and I didn't get a chance to stop. And that's just how it goes sometimes. But, like an anime pro tag, I'm chasing my dreams and I can't stop my training. So, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's a balance. There's also, heavy seasons and low seasons when it comes to like voice acting auditions. So I've got that job. I stream on Twitch. I've got voice acting. There's talk of potentially going to conventions now because I have Shez, which is a character that people care about. And like, for my Fortnite characters, the people who care about them really care about them, but there's not like a huge like fandom of it like there is with Fire Emblem. Like I have 3 toys of characters that I've played in Fortnite, which I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's a bucket list thing. But even then it wasn't like worth necessarily doing conventions. So like now we'll see. We'll add a 4th thing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there much of a story too with getting, because I know pretty new too, was being in Triangle Strategy.
Oh, Triangle Strategy was really cool. That was also a bucket list item. Because that's another like anime sort of trope that I love. The one that like pushes up glasses and is like, this is what's moral. I must push up my glasses. That was a lot of fun. That was another one that was recorded from my closet during, peak pandemic times. I don't know if vaccines were even available then. So yeah, there was no hope of me going into a studio, but that was my first Square Enix game and my first Nintendo game. So I was just like, great, 2 things off the bucket list. I loved Final Fantasy Tactics as a kid. So to see this sort of as like a spiritual successor, I felt very accomplished and very happy to have that. I don't know, just on the resume and be like, any job I get that's like that, I tell myself, if this all goes away tomorrow and I have to like completely switch careers, I can be proud of this. I can be proud of that, So that was another one to just check and be like, wow, Square Enix, Nintendo. All right, cool. I did it. Yeah.
Do you have other like, I guess, aspiration or hope roles for any like anime type of stuff too?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would love to start doing anime dubbing. I read manga. I watch anime all the time. So I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on it. It's just a matter of like, it was the same thing where I would talk to friends who did mostly video game voice acting or anime voice acting, which I had not really broken into as much, but I was doing stuff on Cartoon Network and they were going like, oh, you broke into the Cartoon Network world. Like, that's awesome. That's what I want to do. And I'm like, well, you're an anime. That's what I want to do. So like, there are these different little subsections that like are sort of their own individual challenges to like meet the right people and get into the right studios. So I would love to be in a mainline Final Fantasy game. I was always a big Final Fantasy fan growing up. I would love to be in Kingdom Hearts. I love Kingdom Hearts. That's a big one. Genshin Impact, I would be honored to be a part of. Yeah, I mean, I guess those are probably, for JRPG fans, those are probably the top 3 answers you'd get most likely, huh? Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, Genshin Impact. Yeah, I think that covers it. I don't want to leave anything out. Like, someone later is deciding whether or not to cast me, and they're like, they didn't. Oh, Persona. That's one. I was about to be like, they didn't even mention Persona. Yeah, I would love to be in a Persona game.
Yeah,
that'd be incredible.
Well, that is one thing that I've noticed a lot too with doing interviews with people that are newly added to Heroes is that people all around the US are being part of Heroes now. Like, you don't have to live in like an entertainment city.
Yeah, which is awesome. I think that's absolutely great. I've had people ask me for voice acting advice in streams before. Sometimes they'll donate and, I'll be like, thank you for the $3. And they write, Damien, how do I get into voice acting? And it's a little bit tough to answer that for them because everybody's circumstances are different. I earlier said that I was on a Disney Channel show, and then I met a publicist. The publicist got me my audition with my agent. My agent got my auditions, yada, yada, yada. So I don't know exactly where to start, but I did have somebody ask me recently, like, do I have to move if I want to be a voice actor? And I was like, that's a tough question. I think New York and LA are the primary markets and will continue to be that. There are places that want you in studio, and that's just sort of how it is. But it's not a deal breaker. You know, I know a lot of anime dubbing, I believe, isn't Funimation in Texas?
Yeah.
I want to say, yeah. So, like, Funimation's in Texas. I know Atlanta as a market for entertainment just keeps growing and growing. They like built a studio next to the town where I grew up the year after I left, and they were like, let's just do all of The Walking Dead here. And I was like, are you kidding? Okay, cool. I just moved across the country, but I don't regret it. But it's just, um, Georgia's growing. I think Chicago is a pretty solid market. So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, nothing's a deal breaker. What I will say is, like, I now have my own in-home recording space that's like pretty reliable, and I've, recorded quality things from there, like full bookings from there. And the quality sounds really good. But I have some experience under my belt now, and I have a resume that's built up to show, like, hey, I can do this, and I've met all of these people in studio, and I've met these directors in person. And so now, well, maybe not even now, but like 10 years down the line, if I keep building up my, roster of work, and then I want to move away from LA and be like, hey, I'll only record remotely, then I feel like it would be more comfortable, because people will be like, oh, we know who you are. We know how to book you. We know this is all going to work just fine. I think it'd be a little bit harder to start in that position, but I'm also not an authority to say. And I will say, more and more jobs that come in, or at least auditions, say that, like, hey, you have the choice if you want to come into the studio or record from home. Just give us your specs for recording from home, and we'll see how it sounds. Like, let us know. So,
Yeah. I do think,
oh,
or,
please go for it.
oh, one other thing I think more young people or people around my age or younger are realizing now is that you can't really make a living only doing anime, and people don't realize that.
Sure. Yeah, that is the tough thing. I do get anime auditions here and there. And I just would like to do anime, but it's tough, because sometimes I'll see the rate and it's like, it would be good if that was your 9 to 5 job
Yeah.
and you had a guaranteed amount of hours per day. But, like, I'm learning more and more that, like, yeah, you can't necessarily make a living based on that. And I think that's why so many voice actors do the conventions, and they do the signings, and they do, all these other extra sources of income, because it's a labor of love. And again, I have not booked anime recently, so I'm not an authority on that. But, most creative individuals, until you, like, really, 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 like, make it, you have side jobs. Like, even when I was on Cartoon Network, which paid well, and I, like, went in relatively often, I was working retail. I sold jeans to people. And after selling jeans to people, I was a leather craftsman, but I still did that, and, like, very much relied on, like, oh, I hope Cartoon Network brings me in this month. And otherwise rent is going to be a little tricky, and it's imaginary dinner today. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
uh, and now, I have my 9 to 5 working for Smosh, and I do very much enjoy that job. And it is sketch comedy and it's creative, but it is also something that, like, I couldn't just leave my job right now. I couldn't do that, not in at least live in the same space. Like, if I would, like, have to, like, super downsize to, like, a studio apartment, and, like, I could make it work, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think people voice act because you love it, until you become someone of a status that is working literally every day, like a Tom Kenny type. I think he can just do voice acting, but,
Well,
yeah.
this might be hard for you to answer, but do you
Okay.
do you see yourself at some point, maybe in the future, fully pursuing voiceover?
I think that depends. I like to take opportunities as they come to me. I stopped going to normal high school and did, like, a distance learning program to finish up normal high school, because I was auditioning too much and was missing too much school. I dropped out of college because I had too hard of a time balancing that and the Disney Channel, and I made my choice and I stuck with it, and I was very happy with the choice I made. But, it was a choice. So I certainly want to keep as many plates spinning as possible for as long as possible. But, like, you know, who knows? I was honored to book the role of Shez. I had so much fun playing Shez, but, like, the nature of voice acting is, like, it might be a year, it might be 2 years before I book a comparable role. It might be even longer. So, you know, as of now, nothing I'm doing is holding me back from doing voiceover at my maximum. I'm still getting all my auditions in, except for this week with the vocal or the viral pharyngitis. So I'm usually picking one audition per batch, and I'm like, this is the one I think I could book, and then I have the vocal rest. I'm sorry. But one day. And it's also something I could see myself doing into older age, right? Like right now I'm goofy internet, haha, sketch comedy gamer boy, but like, you can't necessarily do that forever. I would do it forever for fun, but I don't know if if I would have the same level of like marketability if I were like an older man, talking about video games. Or maybe I would. Maybe this generation is going to grow up and we're going to be like, finally, someone who's 60 and loves video games like me. But I think voice acting will always be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and of course, there's people like Yuri Lowenthal who are in their 50s and they still sound like a teenager.
Which is incredible. Absolutely. Yeah. Yuri's work is amazing. And Yuri will be able to do that forever.
Yeah.
And you have no choice but to just be like, you're doing it. Like keep on booking, secure the bag, get it, Yuri.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that's upcoming or part of you can safely talk about?
That's the tough thing. I'm definitely in some upcoming things. Nothing I can safely talk about, unfortunately. I do always, like, the second it's safe to do so, I do always announce things on either my Twitter or Twitch streams or things like that. But yeah, that's the tough thing. I have such a huge paranoid fear of violating a non-disclosure agreement that I'm just like, nope, I don't even know what video games are. Never heard of them. Never worked on them in my life. Don't know about any animated series. Nope. But yes, but no, but yes. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, before my final question, just is there anything that you want to say to the Fire Emblem community?
First of all, I am one of you. And also, thank you for being so welcoming of Shez as a new character in the world of Fodlan. Because these characters are so well written and so beloved that, like, we take ownership of fandoms, right? Like when there's a change, sometimes there's this feeling of like, well, that's not the way I would have done it. That's not the way I would have seen it. But in general, the response to Shez as a character has been really great and really marvelous and really welcoming and accepting. And I'm not even just talking about stuff directly at me, because of course people are going to say nice things to your face. Just the general dialogue I see online, people like this character. So, like, thank you from the bottom of my heart for giving this character a chance. I do want to thank Nintendo. I want to thank Cup of Tea. I want to thank Christian. I want to thank Patrick. I want to thank Diva. I want to thank just everybody on who worked on all parts of this game for letting me be a part of it, because it was truly an honor. I want to thank Danny from Cup of Tea, especially. And I also want to thank Dawn, who plays Femshez, because she was so welcoming and so nice. And like watching the way she takes on the character of Shez is like very different, but also just as appropriate. And I feel like it's a special kind of voice actor that you can watch play the same role as you. And then you go, oh, I'm learning. Mm-hmm. I'm learning from the way you said this. I'm learning by your choices. This was fascinating. Yeah. And I also want to thank Erica Mendez, who's Sinderica on Twitter, the voice of Bernadetta. She's been hanging out in all my streams and has been very politely and very thankfully helping me with the pronunciation of people's names. Like, I've been calling Hubert's voice actor, Robbie Damon. I've been calling him Robbie Draymond for years. And like, we've met, we've talked. I've been like, oh, I can recognize that voice. That's Robbie Draymond. And like, thank goodness for Erica calling me out and being like, hey, just so you know, it's Damon. So I don't make those mistakes in person. Yeah. Ben Lepley, who's Dedu.
He's hilarious.
Is incredible. But he popped in my stream the other night and I was like, let's see, it was Lepley. Oh no, it's you. Hi, hello. And like, again, Erica was there to just be like, hey, Damien, this is Dedu. Like, I'm still learning. Oh, and also specifically to because I'm not a Redditor myself, but there have been many moments where I've been like, oh, Fire Emblem Heroes is giving us one free hero. I don't know the difference between Gatekeeper and Brave Lucina. So thank you to the Fire Emblem Reddit community for being like, you need to go for like corrupted Edelgard. And I'm like, okay, that helps a lot. So yeah.
Well, my final question then is always asking, what do you want your legacy to be?
Oh, what do I want my legacy to be? Goodness gracious. I want to give people, I want to be a part of something that people can look back on fondly with nostalgia. You know, I look back at my time playing Final Fantasy VII or Ocarina of Time, and was the voice acting the thing that stuck out at me? No, Final Fantasy VII didn't even have any voices. It didn't matter. That experience stuck with me. So my hope is that something like Fire Emblem Warriors Three Hopes is that for somebody. I want to be in games that people look back and remember fondly and just feel that like nostalgia and like remember childhood. And I also mean that for adults. Like wherever you are in your life, if you need a little bit of relaxation, I'm honored to be a part of it. And I don't need it to be like Damien Haas made this game the best game ever because of his voice. It's just, it's cool to be a part of something so collaborative and tell a story with this group of people, you know? So I want to be a part of stories like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. This was an honor for me.
Oh, honor for me. Thank you. This was, like I said, my first Fire Emblem interview. So this was pretty darn cool. Thank you. I was a little nervous at the start because, again, I wasn't sure what I could say and not. And I'm like, no, I can say everything. So thank you, truly.
Yeah. Well, you're also my 250th.
No way. Yeah. That's not sesquicentennial. That's duo sesquicentennial. Is that what that would be?
I guess.
Yeah. Happy 250 and congrats to you. 250. That's a lot of interviews. Goodness gracious.
Yeah. It's been just under 2 years too. So.
Wow. Your turnover rate is fantastic. Well, thank you so much. These questions were great and I appreciate your time.
Thanks. Yeah. We'll have a good rest of your night then.
Thank you. You too. Take care.
Bye.